Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final Grid Live wrap-up show of the year. I'm Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish, and with me is our Supercars expert, Adam Lemerise. Please comment in the chat below and ask any questions you may have. And before we get started, we want to give a shout-out to our awesome Patreon supporters, Colin, Mart, Deshelle, and Robin, for supporting the Grid Network. We really appreciate your contributions because our 2022 motorsports coverage would not be possible without you. So we thank each and every one of you. And please be sure to stick around until the very end of our show today for a special announcement. But for now, let's recap the entire race weekend in South Australia. Adelaide lived up to the hype and produced several intriguing storylines. For once, it wasn't your typical SVG smackdown. The opening race of the weekend at Adelaide had lots of action, contact, drama, and surprises in the Repco Supercars Championships return to the Adelaide 500. Shane van Gisbergen, although he started 25th in race one, Cam Waters and Scott Pye all seemed like contenders to get the win at some point during the race, but incidents all put them out of contention. When it was all said and done, Walkinshaw and Andretti United in tribute liveries honoring the Holden Racing team survived the crazy South Australian Saturday to take a special 1-2 finish for Chaz Mostert and Nick Percat. It was Mostert's fifth win of the season, his first since the Darwin Triple Crown back in June, and this was Percat's first podium of the entire 2022 season in a tough year. Adam, what made this win so special and this 1-2 result for Walkinshaw and Andretti United?
Well, Kobe, you mentioned the Holden Racing team and the special liveries that Walkinshaw and Andretti United running this weekend were in honor of HRT. What a way to start the weekend. That special livery came home 1-2. Chaz Mostert, what an incredible drive from pole position. I said on the pre-race show Friday, if SVG can't win, it's got to be Chaz Mostert and him, and his coach, and his teammate Nick Percat, who is from Adelaide. So this 1-2 finish is really, really special for Walkinshaw and Andretti United. Everyone was very happy on this outcome.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. There were a lot of people who were smiling, especially, obviously in the Walkinshaw and Andretti United garage, to be able to get a 1-2 finish on the final weekend for Holden in this special livery honoring the Holden Racing team. It certainly has to feel special for the entire group there. And when you're looking at Chaz Mostert, Nick Percat, a lot of people probably didn't expect them at all to get a 1-2 finish, because many of us, including myself, thought Shane van Gisbergen was going to be the one to get the job done, and possibly his teammate Brock Feeney finished 1-2 in that event, but it was the other Holden team to get it done. Great job by Chaz Mostert, Nick Percat, to go out there and get a 1-2 for the team on this final weekend for Holden. Certainly very emotional seeing them go away, and Mostert certainly capitalized on others having issues. The fight for the win would have been tougher if Cam Waters and Scott Pye didn't run into problems. Both drivers started on the front row and looked like the two main contenders until separate incidents ruined their days. Waters made contact with Todd Hazelwood and turned him into the tire bearers, with Will Brown having nowhere to go. Waters was deemed at fault and got handed a time penalty and ended up finishing 13th. Pye isn't usually in contention to win, and it seemed like he had something for Waters when they battled for the top spot. Contact with between Pye and Bryce Fullwood put Pye out of the race. His last podium came in 2020, and his only Supercars win happened in 2018 at Albert Park. Was this a huge missed opportunity for Waters and Pye to capitalize on a rare bad day for SVG?
Absolutely, Kobe. And like you've often mentioned, Cam Waters is usually hot waters or cold water. In the beginning, he was hot waters, but toward the end, he was cold water. And Scott Pye, I truly thought he was going to be on the podium this weekend. He's an incredible talent at a very good team. So they missed out on a golden opportunity to take advantage of what was an unusual weekend for SVG.
Yeah, you're right. It was quite an unusual weekend for Shane van Gisbergen. I have no idea what went wrong, and we'll get more into SVG's this disappointing day and weekend in a moment. But getting back to the question itself, huge missed opportunity for Cam Waters and Scott Pye. Cam Waters starting up front. He had a fat tick for racing Monster Energy Ford Mustang, and it looked like everything was really falling into place for Cam Waters to have a legitimate shot at winning. But unfortunately, making that mistake, getting a penalty, ended up ruining things for him. And Scott Pye, heaven knows, Scott Pye, this was one of the best opportunities he's had in a long time at potentially winning a Supercars race. I don't remember the last time I saw Scott Pye running this competitively in a Supercars race. So this felt like, this was a rare opportunity for Scott Pye to capitalize and go out there and have a legitimate shot at winning, but unfortunately it wasn't meant to be, because in the second race, Scott Pye he was really nowhere, and he didn't show nowhere near the amount of the same amount of speed that he had in the first race. So definitely, if I'm Scott Pye, I'm very, very disappointed in how things ended up. And as I said, Shane van Gisbergen didn't have a good race, and it all started the previous day when he made a mistake in qualifying, resulting in him starting dead last. In the beginning, van Gisbergen was making steady progress through the field, making overtake after overtake and keeping his car clean for the most part. On lap 38, SVG got the full course caution he needed to close the gap to the leaders. When Jack LeBrock crashed on the restart, SVG was ready to attack and keep marching forward, but he made will-to-will contact with eventual race winner Chaz Mostert, putting the 2022 Supercars champion into the tires nose first. The damage wasn't too severe. Van Gisbergen continued but lost a ton of track position. After that, he actually brought out the safety car himself when he made a mistake and hit another set of tire barriers in turn 11. This time, the impact caused enough damage to the car. Game over as SVG finished a disappointing 20th. Following the race, he said the front roll bar was broken at the start and admitted to making mistakes and called for a big overnight reset entering the final race of the year. And this wasn't the kind of performance we're used to from Shane van Gisbergen. So Adam, with the 2022 champion starting to rear the field, was SVG just trying to do a little too much to make up positions, was resulted in a stunningly bad day for him.
Yeah, Kobe. I'm surprised that SVG had a race one like he had. Starting in the back, like I said, it can be done. So I thought SVG would have the momentum and charge from the back and win. Unfortunately, didn't happen, and it was shocking to see SVG have an off weekend, especially race one. That's not the typical Shane van Gisbergen that we've known all year long. So, he is human, and I was very surprised to see SVG have a disappointing race one.
Yeah, let's see right there. We have a comment in the chat room from Dimas saying, "Hey, yo, what's up, guys? Hey, Dimas, really happy to see you watching today's program." And also saying what an ending to season for Brock Feeney, first win. And I'm glad you brought up Brock Feeney, because that's exactly who we're about to talk about next. Demo said you mentioned Shane van Gisbergen and burnout around the championship trophy. Yeah, that was quite a moment from SVG. A lot of people thought that was one of the coolest championship celebrations that they've ever seen in motorsports, and it certainly takes a lot of skill to be able to do a burnout around the trophy like that in the manner that he did, without actually taking the trophy with him and knocking it over. Really cool thing for SVG to do that there at the end. Yeah, so they must keep the comments rolling whenever needed. And getting back to the question, Adam, Shane van Gisbergen's bad day and bad weekend, as we're gonna touch on in just a little bit. It was unfortunate for SVG that he made that mistake in qualifying, because it was the beginning of a really bad, not so great Saturday at all. Because if he would have hit his marks in qualifying, not made the mistake, I think Saturday would have definitely gone a lot better for him. But unfortunately, being back there, having to try too hard to jockey for position and make up time, it just proved to be just too difficult to do anything with the car on Saturday, even for a guy like Shane van Gisbergen. And as we've said, it just shows that yes, Shane van Gisbergen, despite all of the success he's had, he's in fact human. And SVG waited till the final weekend of the year to come back to earth. And overall, it doesn't take away from the great season that he's had. Obviously, winning 21 races, dominating the entire field, not even close. But Adelaide 500, he certainly has to be disappointed in the effort that his team put in this weekend, because it was just really, really difficult for him. And now moving on to the second 250-kilometer race, the 34th and final race of the 2022 Supercar season, ended with a battle of Holden Commodores in the manufacturer's final race. Race 1 winner Chaz Mostert was putting pressure on rookie Brock Feeney lap after lap during the final green flag run. 20-year-old Feeney drove a perfect race and didn't put a wheel wrong, holding off Mostert to score his first Supercars victory in the last race of his rookie year, and one final win for Holden. So one thing that they won't be able to take away from Brock Feeney, he got Holden's last win ever. And the 2022 season ends on a high note for Feeney. It salvages a tough weekend for Red Bull Ampol Racing altogether, which saw Shane van Gisbergen not win at least one race on a race weekend for the first time since the Darwin Triple Crown back in June. So, Adam, what did you think of Feeney's drive in his first career win? And is this a sign of things to come in 2023?
Absolutely, Kobe. Brock Feeney drove an incredible race too. He held off Chaz Mostert, race 1 winner. He drove the race of his life. And man, God, this year I picked Brock Feeney a couple times, for pick a winner, and it didn't happen. Maybe I should have done it this weekend, but Brock Feeney proved something. Next year, I think Brock Feeney's going to win a few more races and be a contender for the championship. Yeah, I know it's a new car. I know everyone's starting on square one, but this kid is incredible. He came from the Dunlop Super 2 series, and now in race 2, he proved he can race with the best of the best, including his teammate Shane van Gisbergen. Brock Feeney is a name you need to be aware of in the Repco Supercars Championship in 2023 and beyond.
I totally agree with you. Brock Feeney's certainly set up to have a decent 2023 right now, because at the end of this season he really showed what he can do as a driver. And you brought up a good point. He finally showed that he can meet the moment and get up there with Shane van Gisbergen and do the same thing that SVG does. And it was certainly quite a special drive from young Brock Feeney. Been a young inexperienced driver like that, 20 years old, your first season driving the best car in the entire series. There's certainly going to be a lot of pressure on you to try to match Shane van Gisbergen's performance. Feeney wasn't able to do that, for most of the season. But you have to look at the fact, he's a rookie. Supercars is really difficult, tough competition. So for Feeney to be able to hold off Chaz Mostert and not make a mistake in the final laps under pressure, it shows you how much Brock has grown as a driver this year. And I have a comment in the chat room right here from our own Joshua Burt saying, fantastic weekend of action to close 2022. Hey there, Josh. Really appreciate you for dropping in. Yeah, it was certainly a fantastic weekend in South Australia for the Adelaide 500. Glad to have that event back. And Dima saying hello to Josh, and Josh saying hello back to Dima's. Happy to have you guys watching on this special afternoon and get back to the action in Adelaide. Holden swept his final weekend in Supercars competition, but it was the two Shelby Power Ford Mustangs from Dick Johnson Racing locking out the front row with Anton De Pasquale and Will Davison. Just like Saturday's race, Ford showed up with the speed, but the race wins ultimately went to the Holden. On Saturday, the Fords ran into issues that took them out of contention, but DJR and Tickford couldn't match AAA and Walkinshaw and Andretti United for the entire distance of 250 kilometers on Sunday. Was this the perfect closing act on the Holden Commodore era? And will Ford look back on the Adelaide 500 kicking themselves for not at least winning one race?
Kobe, it was a perfect way for the Holden Commodore to go out roaring like a lion, to have two of their top teams, Walkinshaw and Andretti United and Red Bull Ampol Racing, win. You can't ask for a better weekend than that. And though in those two iconic paint schemes that Walkinshaw and Andretti United and Red Bull Ampol Racing had, it was a perfect way to say goodbye to a lifelong Aussie brand. It won't be the same without the legendary Holden Ford rivalry going forward.
You're definitely right about that, Adam. It won't be the same at all without the Holden Commodores. Next year's great gonna look kind of strange, and I've seen the Chevrolet Camaro replacing it. I know we're used to the Camaro here in the United States, but for all the race fans down in Australia who follow supercars, it's certainly going to be quite a change for them, going from holding, a name that's going to be engraved in supercars history forever to Chevrolet looking to write their own history in the series. This is definitely going to be interesting to see how Chevrolet gets on next year and the years ahead. I think we're going to see a lot of the same success that we saw with Holden with Chevrolet moving forward in the future. But Holden, what a perfect way for them to close out their time in supercars. Just an incredible way to end things by sweeping the Adelaide 500 race weekend with Chaz Mostert from Walkinshaw and Andretti United, and then Brock Feeney with the Red Bull Ampol racing team. And I previously mentioned Shane van Gisbergen saying he needed a big reset for Sunday after a bad day on Saturday in race 2. Things actually started off great for SVG. He had a decent pace until the safety car period came out at the worst possible time. Typically, in a double stack situation, SVG is usually ahead, so he's the first Red Bull Ampol driver to receive pit service while Brock Feeney has to wait. However, at the time of the full course caution, Feeney was ahead on track, so Van Gisbergen had to wait for the team to complete the pit stop for his rookie teammate. This caused SVG a lot of track position, put him in a tough spot on the restart. Coming back to green, he received a pit lane penalty for a safety car infringement because he passed another car too soon. His race was ultimately ruined and salvaged a 7th place finish. Nevertheless, he was officially crowned the 2022 Repco Supercars champion after a record-breaking season of domination. Are you shocked that Van Gisbergen was never in real contention to win either race? Many predicted another weekend sweep, or at least bouncing back in the final race.
And yeah, I am surprised SVG didn't win one race this weekend, Kobe. You look at SVG's year this year, I don't think his win total is going to be touched for a long time. SVG has had a year that a lot of people would love to have. Won the most races in a season, won the Bathurst 1000 for the final time, driving Holden Commodore. It's called. I'm surprised SVG didn't win a race this weekend. I was very, very shocked that he didn't win at least one.
Yeah, I think most of us were really shocked that Shane van Gisbergen wasn't able to win a single race this weekend. I know like every other week, I picked him to win race 1 and race 2 in our pick a winner contest, and I got really nervous there at the end because entering this weekend I had a 1 point lead over Joe for the pick a winner championship. And SVG didn't get it done in race 1, and then race 2, I know Joe picked Chaz Monster to win, and Monster was coming on Feeney there at the end. So I'm very thankful that Brock held on there, or I would have to share the title. And while SVG wasn't able to get it done at the end of the weekend, I was still able to become a 3-time pick a winner champion. Really, really excited about that. But all in all, really stunning to see how Shane van Gisbergen wasn't able to get up there and really be in the fight at all this weekend. To be honest, I don't even remember the last time that that we saw Shane van Gisbergen this down. I guess I already said it. It was I believe it was the Darwin Triple Crown was the last time we saw Shane van Gisbergen, have a drop in performance. At that time, I believe he was, just coming off the 24 Hours of Le Mans and all of that. But this time, I'm not really sure if we have answers why Shane van Gisbergen had such a rough weekend in Adelaide. So overall, Adam, how would you rate the Adelaide 500's first race back?
Oh, Kobe, it was a 10 out of 10. It was incredible. It's what the fans wanted. It was an early Christmas present for every Supercars fan from across the world. And it was fitting to see the Holden Commodore win both races, Saturday and Sunday. I can't think of a better way to end the season, and then a stellar history with the Holden brand in Australia.
Yeah, it was certainly a perfect way to end the season with the Adelaide 500. And I'm going to be curious to see what the attendance numbers are going to look like at the end of this. Based on my eye, it looked like the attendance there was pretty good. I know before, before the Adelaide 500 had to take a hiatus, a lot of the numbers were showing, a decline in attendance numbers and the Adelaide 500. And I wonder, compared to the pre-pandemic days, are we going to see the numbers going to be well over 200,000? It's going to be looking really good, or is it still going to be on the decline? Nevertheless, as talked about on our pre-race show, the Adelaide 500 is going to be on the calendar until at least 2026. So regardless of what attendance looks like this year, this event is here to stay for at least the next several years, and that's really exciting for all the Supercars fans who really, really love the Adelaide 500, because it is such a special race on this iconic street circuit, and many people all over the world really love this circuit, as you saw with our colleague Joshua Birch, who popped in at the very end of our show on Friday night here in the United States to talk about how much he really, really likes this event and this racetrack, and he lives in the UK. And out of the 34 races on this year's calendar, Shane van Gisbergen won 21 times, so a 62% winning percentage, the most wins ever during a single season in Supercars history. This record may stand for a long time, or nobody may come close to touching it ever again. And given such a dominant season, SVG is officially the 2022 grid ranking world champion. As you see, his final score is 21.38, and he won this by a large margin. You see Max Verstappen in second with 17.29. Then looking at the rest of the top 10, got Pecco Bagnaia, Will Power, Colin Rovanpera, Stoffel Van Dorn, Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, Scott Dixon, and Fabio Quartararo rounding out the top 10. And now taking a look at the entire grid ranking as a whole, Shane van Gisbergen all the way up there. And then the next highest Supercars driver is Chaz Mostert down in 11. 12th is Cam Waters. Then we have Will Davison down in 15th. And then the last Supercars driver we have in this year's ranking, Anton De Pasquale, all the way down in 25th. So Shane van Gisbergen, very, very dominant. As you can see, that's reflected in the grid rating as well for the Supercars Championship. The top 10 drivers this year in our grid rating, SVG with 721 points and Cam Waters with 380. And it just goes to show how dominant Shane van Gisbergen has been throughout this entire season. And SVG joins Martin Truex Jr., Marc Marquez, Lewis Hamilton, and Sebastian Ogier as our grid ranking world champions in the history of Grid Network. So far, an SVG could have been a 2-time grid ranking world champion. He was in the lead last year in our grid ranking and entering the Bathurst 1000. I believe he had to finish 5th or better and ended up having an issue late in the race and ended up finishing not so well at Bathurst, which actually cost him last year's grid ranking world championship, in which promoted World Rally Championship Sebastian Ogier to that honor. Yeah, but so SVG in terms of the grid ranking, he got one that true he got one this year that got away last year, and nobody dominated their respective series as he did this year. A great job all year long. The best driver and the best car in the grid. Nobody else had a realistic chance at the title. And Adam, thinking of previous championship seasons in supercars, where does SVG's dominance this year stack up against other past champions?
Well, Kobe, I think to me, it's got to be at least in the top five. And you think about some of the other champions: Scott McLaughlin, Jamie Whincup, Marcus Ambrose, Russell Engel, Mark Scaife. Shane van Gisbergen's run this year was incredible, amazing. It was, to me, it was one of the best seasons that we've seen since Scott McLaughlin left to go racing the NTT IndyCar Series. Nobody could touch SVG. But next year, Kobe, we got a whole new car, the Chevrolet Camaro, replacing the legendary Holden Commodore. Everyone's going to be on square one. So can SVG with next year's championship? Well, I don't know. Everyone's going to be coming after that Kiwi because he's going to have a huge target on his back starting in Newcastle in 2023.
Yet another event that's coming back to the calendar that people are excited to see come back, the Newcastle 500, and I'm really glad to have your supercars expertise, Adam, because you've certainly been watching supercars a lot longer than I have, but based on what I saw this season, although we didn't really get to see the parity that we really wanted to with a competitive championship battle coming down to the end. I know before we went on air, Adam, we were joking around backstage talking about SVG's disappointing weekend. We're like, why couldn't Shane van Gisbergen run like this all season long? Because if he had ran this way more often, we would have a closer championship battle than what we saw, which was really, at the end of the day, a complete and utter blowout performance we saw all year long with Shane van Gisbergen, that number 97 team at Red Bull Ampol Racing. It was such an incredible season of dominance. And as I've said multiple times throughout the year with Shane van Gisbergen's year, and I'm going to say it for the final time this year so we can finally bury it. This is a season I feel like we should really appreciate from Shane van Gisbergen because it was such a special season for him to show this level of dominance, because you don't really see this a lot nowadays in motorsports, the type of season. I know Max Verstappen had a very dominant season in Formula One, and just like SVG had in the supercars, but it was quite incredible to see the level of success he was able to have. And I would be very, very surprised if SVG is able to emulate this performance next year or any future season, because Adam, got the rules change coming. Typically, when we see a rule change, there's some things that shake up. I still expect the top dogs in the series right now to remain the top dogs, and we may see a few surprises along the way. I don't think we're gonna see the teams who have been running at the back of the supercars grid, for years, suddenly become contenders and all of that. But I certainly think the competition might be a lot closer than we think. And in the end, Van Gisbergen beat Cam Waters by 615 points in the championship, and Chaz Mostert finished third, 688 points back. Those two drivers won a combined 8 races compared to SVG's 21 wins. Overall, not a lot of parity and limited opportunities for others to win races. With a lot of unknowns heading into the Gen 3 era, this could certainly open up the door for more race winners in 2023. Does Shane van Gisbergen enter 2023 as the early championship favorite, and which driver could emerge as his biggest threat?
Yeah, I think SVG is going to be a driver to be, but like I mentioned earlier, you got to look at his teammate Brock Feeney. He won race 2 in Adelaide, and he had a good rookie year. And next year, everyone's on square. Everyone's going to be back to square one. I think the Shell V Power team of Anton De Pasquale and Will Davison is going to be strong. I think they'll win races. Walking Trot and Gritty United is going over to Ford next year. Chaz Mostert, Nick Percat, I think they'll win as well. but it's hard. But to me, it's going to be hard to knock off that Kiwi, Shane van Gisbergen.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be hard to beat SVG. And despite the rule change, I definitely think he's certainly going to be the championship favorite. It's easy to make him the title favorite unless, Red Bull Ampol Racing, completely gets it wrong with the new car and they're slow right off the bat. I don't think anything's going to stop Shane van Gisbergen from being the ultimate championship favorite. Although I don't think he's going to enjoy the season that he had this year, with winning over 20 races, 21 wins to be precise, in such an incredible season of dominance. I still think SVG is going to be the main driver to go out there and get the job done next year. But others, I think they're going to be licking their chops with this rule change because this is an opportunity for them to close the gap to Red Bull Ampol Racing and show Shane van Gisbergen what they're made of. And talking about biggest threats to SVG next year in the championship, although he's young, I think you have to look at the momentum that Brock Feeney's having. I think Brock has grown a lot this season, and this win in the Adelaide 500 is going to really be great for his confidence heading into the offseason, and he can continue to work on things to improve himself as a driver until we get ready to go race in Newcastle in 2023, and maybe Brock could start to emerge as a championship favorite. No, he finished sixth in the standings this year. Really, really, really good rookie season for him. And next year, he's going to be expected to take the next step. I know in a little bit, we'll talk a little bit more about Brock and some other championship drivers who could potentially take the fight to SVG. You mentioned him, Adam, Anton De Pasquale. I think a lot of people have been waiting for Anton to really break out and have a really, really strong year matching SVG. If Dick Johnson Racing is able to put together a great car in the Gen 3 era for Anton De Pasquale, Will Davison, I think that team could certainly pose a great threat to triple it often than not. And next we're gonna do a quick follow-up question, Adam. So in your opinion, which team or driver was the biggest surprise and disappointment this year?
To me, you got to look at Walkinshaw and Andretti United. Had a really good year. Triple Eight Race Engineering, solid. Shelby Power, really good. And a team that I was disappointed with was Tickford Racing. I thought Cam Waters, he was well, but you mentioned Kobe, sometimes he was hot waters and sometimes he was cold waters. I expected more for him this year. But Tickford Racing was surely a team that disappointed me in 2022.
Yeah, just like you, I thought we were going to see a lot more fight from the Tickford group there. But I'm going to start off with my biggest surprise of the 2022 Repco Supercars Championship season. And my biggest surprise came from the Ben Motorsport part, the Ben Super Sprint weekend. How about Zach Best, winning the pole in a wild card entry. Yeah, and especially, I believe the car was unsponsored as well. It didn't have any sponsors on. It was just a black Tickford Ford Mustang with nothing on it, and Zach Best, one of their regulars in the Dunlop Super 2 series, and to go out there in a wild card entry, not a lot of supercars experience at this level of racing, and to win the pole and get a top 5 finish on that weekend, that was just really, really incredible. And for all of our American viewers, be like someone who have limited Xfinity starts, let's say like a Sammy Smith, it would be just like Sammy Smith going into the NASCAR Cup Series and the top competitors there right off the bat. That's how impressive Zach Best was for Tickford. While Zach Best won't be stepping up to the main game, as they say down under, next year, I certainly think Zach Best will certainly have some opportunities to go full-time supercars racing in the future, because what he was able to do at the Ben Motorsports part, that was a really special performance by him winning the pole and getting a top 5 finish, and it shows you the talent the young man has. And I know Tickford's going to have him under contract for next season. I saw that he's not going to be racing with them in Super 2, but they have a plan for young Zach Best. If I'm Tickford, I'm not letting him get out of my sight. And once the spot opens up on the Supercars squad, I'd be willing to add him because I think Zach Best is going to be one of the next young stars in the Repco Supercars Championship. And my biggest disappointment of the year certainly has to be Erebus Motorsport. At the end of the 2021 season, it seemed like Brody Kostecki and Will Brown had a lot of momentum entering this year, and I thought they were going to be able to capitalize on that. But unfortunately, we didn't see Erebus keep up with the same momentum they had at the end of 2021 and have it carry over into 2022. I mean, Brody Kostecki, finished right behind Brock Feeney in the championship 7th, and then looking at Will Brown, all the way down in 14th. So really disappointing year for those drivers. I was certainly expecting a lot more out of Brody Kostecki, Will Brown, and the entire Erebus Motorsport team, and we'll see. Moving on to the next era, Gen 3 regulations. See if Erebus can try to bounce back and improve their performance even more, because I'd expected a big 2022 out of them, and I feel like in certain aspects they kind of let down in certain areas. And one driver hanging up the helmet on a full-time racing career is Lee Holsworth. He finished 9th in his final race as a Supercars regular. He plans to move on to the next chapter of his life, but he's not done racing altogether. Holsworth is expected to find an endurance drive as a co-driver, so we'll likely see him in the Sandown 500 and the Bathurst 1000 in 2023. Adam, for anyone unfamiliar with Lee Holsworth, what type of career did he have as a full-time driver?
Lee Holsworth had a really good career. Last year, he won the Bathurst 1000 with his co-driver Chaz Mostert. Lee Holsworth is one of those guys that is a very talented man, and it won't be the same without Lethal on the full-time grid next year. But it will be cool to see him competing in the Enduros at the Sandown 500 and the Bathurst 1000. Lee was a very popular driver on the grid, and it won't be the same without him going full-time next year.
Yeah, it certainly won't be the same without Lee Holsworth. Yeah, everybody's certainly gonna miss Lethal's presence on the grid full time. But I'm really glad that he was able to do what a lot of drivers don't have a chance to do, is to go out on their own terms. Remember when he got the Bathurst 1000 victory as Chaz Moster's co-driver? He wasn't ready to hang up the helmet yet. He performed extremely well, put himself in a position to get this drive this year while Grove Racing waited for Matt Payne to become eligible to race in the Supercars Championship. So Lee Holsworth got to do one more full-time season and showed he can still get the job done. And for his sake and his career, I'm really glad that he got to do it on his own terms, and certainly wish Lee Holsworth the best of luck in the next chapter of his life. And I'm sure, and like I said, we're probably going to see him at a racetrack again sometime soon in the future at Sandown and at Mount Panorama. And taking one final look at Brock Feeney's first career win and first full season in Supercars. As I mentioned, he finished 6th in the championship. That isn't bad for a rookie at all, because you can't expect a young driver to be competing for wins consistently right from the start. With the win under his belt now, there will surely be more expectations next year to be closer to his teammate Shane van Gisbergen in performance. At Mount Panorama, people were caught off guard when Triple H chose Jamie Whincup to qualify the car for the Bathurst 1000 instead of Feeney, despite Whincup participating in qualifying while Feeney watched from the garage. The number 88 Holden Commodore failed to make the shootout that day. It's pretty unusual not to see the full-time driver qualifying the car for the great race. This incident caused some to wonder if Red Bull Ampol Racing didn't have confidence in Feeney to get the job done. Now, with a spectacular win at the Adelaide 500, the team has to feel a lot more excited about Feeney, his future, his potential, and the growth that he's shown throughout this year. So in your opinion, Adam, did Brock Feeney have a successful rookie season, and how do you think he handled the pressure of being Shane van Gisbergen's teammate?
Oh, I think Brock Feeney handled the pressure very well, and he did score a couple podiums this year. So, and plus that win in race 2 at Adelaide, that's got to give him a lot of momentum going into next year, because he can compete with the best of the best. And I was impressed with Brock Feeney. I think he had a really good rookie season, And next year, those rookie stripes come off. So so you could sort of say now he'll be a veteran.
Yeah, one year under Brock's belt. I'm sure like every driver, he's learned a lot in his rookie season. And out of all the drivers on the grid, if I'm a rookie driver, the last guy I want is my teammate is Shane van Gisbergen, because people are always going to be comparing me to him. Shane won 21 races compared to Brock's one. But at the end of the day, like I said, Brock is a rookie. You can't expect a rookie to go out there and match Shane van Gisbergen to a T. But I think Brock did reasonably well, handling the pressure throughout the end of the season. I remember the scene in the garage when Jamie Whincup was qualifying at the Bathurst 1000. Brock looked really disappointed. You could tell he wanted to be in the car, but at the end of the day, he understands the situation. You have to do what the team asks. Just keep a cool head, and just go out there and do your job. And I think Brock responded well from that situation, where Jamie Whincup qualified instead of him. I remember after that happened, we were wondering, Adam, if this would potentially cause Brock Feeney to lose confidence in himself as a driver. But after his great victory at the Adelaide 500, it's safe to say that Brock didn't lose any confidence at all. I have a feeling that'll be one of the moments that help make him a better race car driver, and it's going to be exciting to see what he's going to do in the future. I know a lot of people were really hyping him up entering this season, being like that this can be one of the next great stars of the Repco Supercars Championship. Will Brock become one of those drivers? Stay tuned.
That's right, Kobe. And now for the final time in 2022, it's time for one shining moment. So, Kobe, what was your one shining moment from this weekend at the Adelaide 500?
Well, my one shining moment certainly has to be Holden going out with a pair of wins, especially with the tribute liveries on both winning teams from Walkinshaw and Andretti United and Red Bull and Pole Racing. It was a special Saturday, as we mentioned, for Walkinshaw and Andretti United. Chaz Mostert, Nick Percat getting a 1-2, and for Nick Percat getting a second place finish. That was huge for him, because Percat, I guess you can say he's one of the drivers who disappointed in 2022 because he wasn't able to match Chaz Mostert's performance at all. And it was crazy, go that far into the season and the type of equipment he in. And that was his first podium of the entire year. So I think if somebody on the grid will need to step up and perform next season to match Mostert, it'll certainly be him, because it was certainly a tough year for Percat, and for him to be a part of that 1-2 with Mostert, certainly a really special thing. And then on Sunday, Red Bull and Pole Racing closing out the Holden era, getting the final win with Brock Feeney, really special. That's a moment that Brock is going to cherish for the rest of his life. And if I'm Holden, I have a tear running down my cheek, because we're sad that it's over, but we're happy that it happened, because Holden will forever be in the history books in the Repco Supercars Championship. And next up, the Chevrolet, the Camaro, General Motors, they're going to have a lot of shoes to fill with that brand throughout their time in the series.
Yeah, Kobe, I got to agree. My grid one shining moment has to go to the Holden Commodore and the Holden brand. What a way to go out. They roared like a lion, winning both events. And give a call to Brock Feeney, winning his first career win, and the last time we'll see a Holden Commodore on the Repco Supercars grid. Like you mentioned, he'll remember that win for a long, long time to come.
Yeah, I totally agree. Those wins, especially the very first one of your career, those are ones you're gonna remember for forever. And Brock Feeney certainly has a really bright future ahead of him. Yes, sky's the limit for that young 20-year-old, and can't wait to see what he's able to accomplish in supercars in the next few years ahead. And unfortunately, we're out of time for today, so we want to remind all our viewers, be sure to check out the newest episode of Life on the Grid. We interviewed the managing editor at the Podium Finish, my colleague Nathan Solomon, to discuss his busy life as a young journalist covering multiple sports. Link in the video description below. On Wednesday, Joshua Birch and I will co-host Grid Tonight, the latest news in motorsports, including a full recap of the Snowball Derby taking place in just a little while. Also, be sure to follow us on social media. And a big thank you to our awesome Patreon supporters, Colin, Mark, Deshell, and Robin. Thank you so much for everything you've done for the Grid Network. We really, really appreciate it. Click on a link to our Patreon or buy me a coffee for a one-time donation. Thank you to Edward Hunter from Formula Zone, Amber, Zachary for buying us a coffee. Also, use public.com to invest in the stock market. Use the code GRIDnet to earn free stocks. Get started and utilize the stock market for your own personal investment. And before we end our program today, Adam Lemerise, our supercars expert, has some news that he wants to share with everyone.
That's right, Kobe. Today, I share with all of my colleagues and viewers, this is my final show as a member of the Grid Network. First and foremost, I want to thank Joe Samiego for bringing me on board with this incredible group of people. What I love the most, talk about motorsports. I've been very fortunate to be your supercars expert, appearing on most programs, especially on Grid Tonight with Kobe. As I depart Grid Network, I'm taking many memories and friendships that will last me a lifetime. Being a part of this team has been one of the greatest joys of my life. Although leaving family isn't easy, it still makes me smile knowing I can go on this YouTube channel anytime I want and relive some of the great times that we share together. Some of you may be wondering, what's next for me? Well, you guys can catch me on Sports Talk with Chris Heidel Tuesday nights from 7 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern as we talk from people from all forms of sports. Search Herb FM Sports Radio on YouTube.
And right there, got a comment from our own Joshua Burt saying, "Oh no, Adam, I'm gonna miss you a lot. You're welcome anytime on the watch along." He said, "Be safe, my friends." A message there from our own Joshua Burt, co-host of our Wednesday night Grid Tonight weekly motorsports news program. And Adam, I'm sure I speak for the entire team when I say it's hard to see you go. You're one of the originals who helped build the foundation that Grid Network stands on today. We've had a lot of good times working together on our supercars and IMSA content on the Grid Live programs. We also worked together closely on Grid Tonight for a long time. The only reason why that show is still around today, to be blunt, is due to you stepping in during a tough transition period. Personally and professionally, I'm grateful for everything you've brought to my life and this team, Adam. We're all going to miss you on the air with us, and we definitely wish you the best in your future endeavors. Grid Network won't be the same without you, and from our time as co-hosts on Grid Tonight, I'm honored that I'm the one who gets to share this special moment with you. And since it's your last show with us, how about we let you sign off for one final time?
Thanks, Kobe. For Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish, my entire family at Grid Network, I'm your supercars expert, Adam Lemerise, signing off for the final time as a member of this amazing team. Thank you all. Thank you all for everything and the special memories. I'll never forget it. Happy holidays. See you in the chat room soon. It's goodbye for now.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.